Welcome, everybody. Blitz is back week one. We got some new digs. We got some new places we're doing this at, but still the same trio and still the same start sit advice that you guys have all been waiting for, and it'll be all yours here in about 30 seconds. I mean, the combination of all of it has me so damn fired up. I don't even hardly know what to do with myself right now, man. That intro, the fact that it's week one, the fact that it's day one of football. I mean, really, because we can't count Thursday, right? Like that looked like amateur hour. Both teams kind of came out there looking like garbage. So I think this is the official kickoff week one. Let's go. On my left, we got my man Jeff. Jeff, how we doing this morning? Happy Blitz Sunday. How we doing, brother?
Hey, happy Blitz Sunday to you, my friend. Let's say some prayers, get some good advice in here, and get the games going.
I love it. And down below, we got my man Joe. Joe, how we doing this morning?
Can't believe it's been almost 8 months since we were in these seats doing this same thing. But this is what we wait for all off season. It really culminates to right here and now, 2.5 hours before week one kicks off. We've already had one major upset from that Thursday night game with no Kelsey playing, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out today on the field and fantasy-wise.
Yeah, we got all kinds of injury news. We got all kinds of holdouts. We've got all kinds of things that have been happening that you don't typically see in week one. I mean, Mark Andrews, I understood he was questionable, right? But there are so many players that were questionable coming into this week. I really didn't think it was a possibility we didn't see him suiting up today. And here we are, So, I mean, Isaiah Likely, I imagine we're going to probably see quite a few questions surrounding him today and or around that kind of area just because, man, losing Mark Andrews, that's, a lot of people grabbed him as their tight end, second or third round, especially in tight end premium leagues. He might have gone even first round in some of those leagues. So we're definitely ready to take this on, and we're ready to get this thing going. We'll go ahead and answer any questions that you guys have. Got to let you know, if you're watching this on Twitter, make sure if you want to get the questions in there, you're going to want to get on YouTube because they do not translate over on the live Twitter app yet. So I have to get on YouTube to go ahead and get that, but just hop on over. It's the same show, just a different app, and that way we can get to your questions. And speaking of, guys, we got our first one of the season. We got our man Z2 Fantasy says flex Ayuk or Brian Robinson half PPR. Joe, we're going to go ahead and let you lead this one off, man. How we doing?
I'm really curious. Brian Robinson, and then you got Bijan this year, right? Who I feel like all of the hype for Bijan this year was the hype for Brian going into last season. Plus, he had the whole thing where he got shot, but then he was able to come back. Looked kind of good. Antonio Gibson's really hard to figure out lately there. I'm not sure what to think of that running game. If any week for both of them to be successful, it would be this week with the matchup home against Arizona. But I actually think I'm going to flex Ayuk here. Kittle's a little banged up. I'm not sure what Debo is going to look like quite yet. And I don't trust Brian Robinson getting red zone touches over Antonio Gibson. So I'll trust Ayuk to go 6 for 70, let's say, or 5 for 70 in a PPR. And that probably will translate to be a little better than Brian Robinson. It's close. I got to see what this Washington team is all about offensively now.
I dig it. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that or to take away?
I'm going to disagree a little bit. You mentioned what the Arizona team has to offer offensively. That doesn't necessarily concern me this week as much as how poor the Arizona defense is. They're 30th in the league against the run. Now, again, it's week one. We don't know a ton to expect. But, Mike, as we always say, a tie goes to the running back. I believe that Brian Robinson will probably get more touches than Ayuk. I don't think Ayuk's a bad play, but I think that in the end, you might get a little bit more out of Robinson than you would Ayuk.
I think that Pittsburgh-San Francisco game, I don't think San Fran's going to walk all over them in Pittsburgh. That's a tough first game, Purdy coming back from the injury. I think that's going to be a tightly contested game. And I don't even think it's going to be super high scoring, but I could see Ayuk bringing in a couple of big fourth quarter receptions and San Francisco winning a close one, like 19-16, 21-19, something like that.
Yeah, I definitely see that game being more of a defensive struggle than an offensive success for sure. But I'm actually going to lean Ayuk here just by a hair, just because I'm kind of with you, Joe. I think Antonio Gibson's going to be the guy that we see a whole lot more as the secondary back on that team. So with that said, I think Howell's going to be lighting it up with his arm more than anything out there. So go ahead. I think I got to lean. I think I got to lean
2-1 Ayuk.
Yep. And especially with the banged up Kittle, that's kind of where my selling point goes over the top. Right
let me ask you guys a quick question. It's not necessarily a start sit, but let me ask you this real quick. How do you guys feel about starting Dalton Kincaid week 1? Or do you think he's really more for down the line?
Week 1, I don't think I have a whole, and you know me, I'm a freaking Bills fan, man. And I don't know if you know how excited I was about this Kincaid grab, but they traded up for him. I think they're going to be definitely utilizing him more probably out of the slot or the flex area than out of the tight end position to start things off. But it's one of those things. I mean, it depends on who I'm up against there as far as what I have, but I think I would start him with slight confidence, but it's going to be slight and moderate. I mean, to most, I don't think we're going to see more than oh dude, I just got so excited right now just because of the next question that just came up, just because I was hoping this guy would find us and follow us. But yeah, no, I think I'm at 30%. Let me say 30% Dalton Kincaid right now. I think we see more of a Gabe Davis, Stephon Diggs show, and then I think we see James Cook light it up like a Christmas tree over there as well.
Yeah, I think, Joe, that the Jets defense, they're no slouches over there. Week 1, Kincaid will probably get some, and he's certainly the guy. Don't get me wrong. We talked about this guy before, and I'm pretty high on him going down the road. I don't think week 1 you're going to see a ton. You might see maybe 3 receptions for 35 yards or something like that. That's kind of something that I see out of the guy.
I agree. All right, thank you, guys.
Excellent. And the next question coming up, we got our man Trans-Siberian, man. How is it going?
Back in Ukraine, Jesus.
He's back in Ukraine. It's good to hear that you're back in Ukraine. I hope everything's staying safe for you. I know we hightailed it to Poland last year, but man, I just got to say I'm so glad you got us and followed us over here to Triple Play. Away from the last one, man. It's great to see you. Great to see you, my man. He says, do you trust Dubs today, or do I roll out Charbonnet standard flex spot? Jeff, lead us off right here.
So part of my ignorance, Dubs, are we referring to Kenneth Walker or who are we talking about?
Romeo, that's a good question. I'm assuming Romeo Dubs wide out for the Packers.
I mean, if we're talking that, then I'm going Charbonnet. I don't think either one of them will do a ton, and that's a bad position to be in. But I guess I would go maybe Charbonnet in that aspect if it is Romeo Dobbs.
Yeah, can you clarify there, Trans-Siberian? I'm actually not too sure who Dubs is myself. There's a lot of these things get missed on me as far as nicknames go because I won't Green Bay, so it is Romeo Dubs. Yeah, so man, I think so far, I don't think I've seen anything that states. I know he was a game time decision last time I looked, but seeing that, I would still probably lean him. I think he's going to give you a little bit more than Charbonnet. I think Kenneth Walker is going to be dominating that backfield today. I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of difference going on there.
Yeah, I would trust Romeo Dobbs as their number 1 today more. Chicago, they should be able to score some point. So Packers will have to throw the ball at some point, I would assume. No Christian Watson. So I think Dubs has got to get some, no Lazard. I think Dubs has got to get, so they got to throw it to someone.
And not to pick here, but as a grammar Nazi that Joe knows I am, okay. Romeo Dobbs is spelled with an O. So I missed on that one. Anyhow, that's why I was confused there.
Yeah, I assumed he meant Dubs because of how I've always said it, he said it how I spell it in my head. So, but yeah, it definitely has the OU in there. So because there's, again, man, if you watch, say the fantasy footballers along with us, those guys have a nickname for everybody, right? And a lot of times people ask questions with their nickname, and I'm like, dude, I have no clue who you're talking about. Although then I figure out who it is, and they're usually pretty damn hilarious. I got to give them credit there for sure. We got our man. He says, go Blue Ches. Do I start Ramondre or J.K. Dobbins? I already actually led this one off with when I talked to him earlier. I said J.K. Dobbins just because with the Mark Andrews absence, I think he's going to see a little bit more. And something that kind of scares me about this is Ezekiel Elliott. But, Joe, I'll go ahead and turn it to you. What do you think?
I think that if you're in a standard scoring league and it's not PPR, I probably would lean Dobbins without Andrews. I think there's a very good chance that Dobbins gets in the end zone today. But if you do have a PPR and if your yardage scoring is a little bit maybe on the higher side, I would go Ramondre. I don't feel great about him getting in the end zone, but I mean, Philadelphia, they're playing, so they're going to have to score some points. I would imagine in the second half, it's going to be more passing packages with Ramondre than running packages as Zeke Elliott for them. So I would assume Ramondre is going to get some legit targets as well as, 10 to 12 rushes. And he looked great last year. It's just a matter of how often he's going to be able to get into the end zone. Because Dobbins will have multiple touchdown games throughout the season, probably, if he can finally stay healthy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jeff, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, I'll agree with you guys and make it 3 for 3 on Dobbins. Not that I hate Ramondre Stevenson, but Mike made a good point there. With Zeke, if you get down to maybe the 2 or 3 yard line, sometimes I can see them handing him off. And not to mention the matchup is not as favorable for Ramondre Stevenson as it is for J.K. Dobbins. I think that the Philadelphia defense is going to be harder on New England than the Houston defense is on Baltimore. So I'm leaning Dobbins.
Love it, love it, love it. And weird, Translator Mary said, "Hey, hard to type without glasses." He says, "Wait till you." I love it. Z2 Fantasy says, Deshaun or Geno? He's leaning Geno right now. Jeff, what do you think?
Ooh, that is a tough one. I do like that. A couple weeks ago, we had an argument with Geno and Kirk Cousins. I gotta lean Geno too, just because Deshaun Watson has not proven himself. He's got the weapons. Don't get me wrong. Deshaun Watson has a lot of tools and can be that guy. We've seen him be that guy. It's been a long time. So Geno, we know has the weapons. We know can prove it. I think Geno, you'll probably see him put up probably. I would venture to guess about 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Isn't out of the realm of Geno going versus Watson.
Joe, do you agree or disagree?
This is an interesting one. And it's funny, in my leagues, I noticed people all week long having the same question in their head, because I've seen after drafts, I've seen Deshaun Watson picked up. I've seen him dropped. I just saw somebody yesterday drop Deshaun Watson for Geno Smith as their backup in one of our 1 quarterback leagues. I've got guys in our 2 quarterback leagues who are, have both these guys as number 2 quarterbacks. So I think there's a lot of questions and a lot of hope swirling for both of these guys. I think there's certainly a little more risk in Deshaun right now. If you want 15 to 20 points guaranteed at your QB position, Geno's the guy to go with. That being said, the higher ceiling for the season has to be Rub Maps Malone over there with Deshaun Watson and in Cleveland, because if he ever gets back to the point where he's rushing for 40, 50, 60 yards and maybe a touchdown here or there, along with throwing it to Cooper and People Jones and David Njoku, he's got the weapons there. Nick Chubb too. So I think hope floats a little more for Deshaun throughout the year, but week 1, if you're just looking for 15, 18, 20 points, Geno's probably the safer bet.
I like it, and I actually agree with that. I think you got definitely a higher ceiling with Deshaun Watson. If he can go out there and be any semblance of what he used to be prior to injury and suspension and whatnot, I think he could be a quarterback 1 easily. Even a top 5 quarterback with the cast that he has surrounding him, especially with Nick Chubb in that backfield. Yeah. But I think this week I'm going to go ahead and leave Geno as well. I think Geno's got the edge here, and I'd say, and it's not like I'm sitting there not liking the weapons that they have over there in Seattle either, man. I really like JSN. I really like Metcalf, and I really think, honestly, I think you'll see Noah Fant actually become kind of a relevant player once again. We got King A 100333742. He says, who do I got in a PPR flex spot? Drake London or Samaje Perine? Brian Robinson. Jeff, I think you let it off last time, but we're going to have you lead it off again just because I already forgot that.
This is an interesting one. I did like Perine before. I think they mentioned, and the other running back there in Denver's escaping me. Initially, he was going to be injured. I thought Perine might be a good play, but he'll be playing backup today. Drake London is the number one receiver over there in Atlanta. Brian Robinson, like you had mentioned, still has Antonio Gibson. Slightly, I guess I'm going to lean Drake London just because he is the number one receiver. And I guess we'll see what because there's a couple other options in these other scenarios with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, and then somebody help me out with Javonte Williams. I'm sorry. So because of those two, Drake London's the number one guy. I go Drake London, not by much, but
I'm rusty. I was making fun of you, and I'm thinking Perine. I'm thinking Penny from Philly. Until we just said it, so I wasn't even gonna freaking analyze the right guy. Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is a real interesting one. See, now I think I'm gonna flip it around. Oh man, I'd like to go Drake London, but I don't know. I don't feel great about that. See, now I feel like I'm gonna take the 10 touches that Brian Robinson's gonna get, and says he'll get in the end zone, so it's 10 for 40 and a touchdown, and I guess that's where you want to be with this group. I wouldn't do Perine because Williams is playing, even though for a while they didn't think he would play week 1. He is going to play. So London or Robinson, I guess London to me has got the bigger ceiling. Robinson's probably got the best shot of giving you 10. That's the way I would look at that. Mikey, what do you think?
And you're going to hate it because I'm going to actually lean Perine here because of the fact that Javonte Williams is coming in, and I don't think they're going to give him
that's true.
the ball 100% of the time. I think you're going to see Perine come in on third down and possibly goal line. So I think if you're looking for a PPR flex spot, really makes me want to lean Drake London, though. So looking at that again, I think I actually can lean with Jeff here and say Drake London, but I really do like Samaje Perine. I think he is going to see a lot more volume than a lot of people are giving him credit for with the Javonte Williams injury. Now, 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, if we start seeing Javonte Williams be who he can be, then I think Perine becomes irrelevant. But I think for the first few weeks here, I think he's a pretty legitimate flex play. Z Fantasy said he's playing against a guy who started Sky Moore. Yeah, nice.
That's a great segue right into playing Geno. Get your 18 to 20 and don't have a Sky Moore in your lineup, and you're good to go.
Yep, exactly. And he appreciates us, and we appreciate you, man. And we couldn't do this without you. So make sure you're liking, you're subscribing, because we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here every single Sunday, and we love this stuff. We got our man George _305. He says, do I start Evan Ingram or David Njoku? Joe, who you got?
I think you got to start Evan Ingram here. Ingram in his volume last year was pretty impressive. Now, I understand that you got Ridley there now. I get that, and Kirk is still there also. But I just think Evan Ingram is a very big part of that offense. And we're, as we were just talking about Deshaun Watson, we're hopeful, but we don't know for sure yet. So I'm going to go Evan Ingram this week.
Excellent. Jeff, do you got an argument for that?
Well, actually, I think Joe kind of made an argument against his argument because of the weapons that are in Jacksonville with Kirk and Ridley and Etienne, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. Whereas Yoko, as Joe likes to call him, over there in Cleveland, he might be the quote-unquote safety blanket possibly for Deshaun Watson, and have some of those throws and possibly some red zone touches and everything else. So because of the number of guys in Jacksonville, I'm slightly leaning Njoku, and I always want to stay in Yoko now. Thanks a lot, Joe.
Yes, sir.
I'm actually going Ingram here. I think he's going to continue where he left off last year, where he ended as a top 5 tight end, and I think he'll continue that run. I really like Ingram. I really like that offense. I think we're going to see some. I think that game's going to be one of the higher scoring games, as we discussed last night on our DFS show. I'm really heavy into that game, the Jacksonville-Indianapolis game. I think it's going to be fireworks, just because I don't have a lot of faith in both of those defenses right there. So definitely Ingram on that one. We got at no fate flexing full PPR, Dameon Pierce or Deontay Johnson. I'm going to go ahead and lead this one off. I feel like Dameon Pierce has earned his spot on that team. And further, I think this is going to be a team that you see nurse him back into play a new quarterback with CJ Stroud. So I think you're going to see a lot of running. I think you're going to see a lot of real quick short passes to, like, say, the tight end area and things like that on this offense. So I love Dameon Pierce this year. I love Dameon Pierce this week. Jeff, what do you think?
I'll agree with it. To me, I think it's almost a no-brainer with Dameon Pierce. Of course, I have a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth with Deontay Johnson because I had him on my team last year in one of my main leagues thinking he was going to do something significant, and he did not at all. Plus, the Steelers are going up against San Francisco. They're no slouches on defense. Baltimore, not the greatest defense, but not terrible. So running back-wise versus wide receiver, I think Dameon Pierce is the guy.
Definitely like that. Definitely like that as well. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go Pierce too on this one, just for sheer volume of touches and whatnot. You know, I'm going to revisit. I think my passion for Brian Robinson this week has just burned a little brighter too. The more I'm reading here, he is clearly the number one over Antonio Gibson, with Gibson probably coming in third down in passing situations. So a week like this, home against Arizona, if you got Brian Robinson, this is probably the week to start him more than most weeks where you're going to feel like Gibson's going to take a lot from him. They could end up with 30, 35 carries between the two of them. And I just read a stat too. Arizona last year gave up 12 points to two running backs 5 weeks last year. 5 times two running backs on the same team scored 12 or over against Arizona. So now I'm on the train a little more.
Definitely. We're going to go with this next one. We got 11 Chef Dom. Should he start DJ Moore or Cooks as the wide receiver too? Joe, you ended the last one. Let's go ahead and start this one.
Yeah, I think, you drafted DJ Moore to be your probably wide receiver too, I'm assuming. Cooks in the flex hopefully will look good at some point. But they got Gallup there too. So I'll be curious to see exactly how many targets Cooks gets there. So week 1, I like the Fields to Moore potential. I would go DJ Moore.
I like it. Jeff, what do you think?
You know my guy. One of my guys is DJ Moore. Love that dude. He's the clear-cut number one over there in Chicago. He is what Justin Fields has been waiting for. I love to start this guy over a lot of, I wouldn't say anybody, but over a lot of guys, especially over Cooks in this particular scenario. So DJ Moore and heavy.
I like it too. DJ Moore, we've been hyping up Justin Fields all off season, and there's a reason for it. Is because we like what he's going to be able to do with his legs. Well, this also gives him an opportunity to do something with his arm, and that's going to open up dynamics on that offense that they really didn't have last year, because you didn't almost have to respect Darnell Mooney. Equinemius St. Brown, I believe, was another guy that might have played on that team. Cole Kmet has another year under his belt. Tight ends always take.
They traded for Claypool too, right?
Yeah, and Claypool as well. So I mean, like they're not stacked, right? But they do have way better options now than they had last year. And like I said, and Cole Kmet with another year under his belt. So definitely leaning DJ Moore here. I think he's going to actually have himself a pretty good week. I honestly, I really don't know how Brandon Cooks is going to translate to that Dallas offense. There's already a lot of people to feed on that team. There's already a lot of people I like. Well, if you start evaluating how much I like everybody on that team, the score is going to have to be like 56, 64 points every single week for any of those to be true. So I think I'm going to just stick with CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard and call it good right there. And maybe a little bit of Jake Ferguson on the side right there. We got the fire guy. He says he needs a flex in a half PPR league. Hopkins or Mostert? And I'll go ahead and let you lead this one off, Jeff. What do you got?
I like Hopkins. I know it's a new offense for him, but he's still, the guy can still bring it. Mostert, he's there with, isn't that Jeff Wilson Jr.? He's over there as well in Miami. So Hopkins, I think he's going to be a good tool, and we'll probably have a decent amount of touches. I could see Hopkins getting somewhere around who knows, 9 targets, 6 catches for 80-something yards and possibly a touchdown. I like Hopkins over Mostert.
Well, I mean, you're talking about a guy who, when he shows up, the playbook kind of changes and it turns into a lot of just throw it to Hopkins or throw it near Hopkins. He can definitely make plays. All you got to do is get it within, I think, I think, what did he have? Something like 18-yard range or something like that within a half a second. It's insane. And you meant Jeff Wilson, right? Because every time I have Jeff Wilson, he shows up with an IR right next to his name. Isn't that his name, Jeff Wilson?
He is, yeah, and he is on the IR for the first 4 weeks this season. So Mostert really is clearly the guy there. That being said, and that's lining up to be like the highest scoring game of the week too. I like Mostert. While the guy stays healthy, he produces. The guy is good for 5-6 yards a carry. He just can never stay healthy. But at the same time, can you really start him week 1 over DeAndre Hopkins? Like, if you do and you mess it up, that's a tough one to sleep on. Whereas if you start Hopkins and it doesn't go great, at least you know you got Mostert for next week. I think you got to go Hopkins, but I do love the idea of Mostert having that job all by himself for the first 4 weeks.
And I'll interrupt there. So, and my mistake, there's always at least one of them on Saturday nights or Sunday mornings. I did not realize Mostert was the clear-cut guy. I might switch my pick then in that case, because the Miami Chargers game has the highest over-under of the week. You know they're going to be putting up some points. I get it. There are a lot of mouths to feed in Miami, but I think they can get that amount of points. So if Mostert, to me, is the clear-cut guy, I think I might be changing my tune there and going that way.
I like them both. You know, I guarantee I can get why this is such a tough dilemma right here, but I'm actually leaning Mostert as well, just because, the running back situation. I like Hopkins, but I really have never been a big – I mean, you guys know we debated this season and how down I am on that offense because it's just not a high-octane offense, and it's very much run first. So, I mean, I think Hopkins is going to be – while I think he's going to be grabbing 4 to 5 catches a game, I don't think we're going to see those games where he gets 7 to 10 targets, especially with Treylon Burks sitting on the other side of the field. So for me, it is actually Mostert right here. And it's surely a volume play because I don't really see too much. I think, what is it? Ahmed is the next man up.
Yeah, Salvin,
Mostert go down. And so, yeah, I'm not too worried about him stealing too many touches. I think Mostert is going to be a high volume back this week. So, all right, with the next one we got at Suns 816 says Rodgers or Tagovailoa. Joe, what do you think?
Wow.
Isn't that weird? Like, what a weird world we're living in now. I mean,
I know.
I think this shows my age more than it shows the crazy part of the world.
You know, this is a funny one. Man, Aaron Rodgers has been so rough fantasy-wise the last couple of years. Kind of like Tom Brady his last few years. It was not good fantasy-wise. Brady had the one year with Tampa, but even his second year in Tampa wasn't great fantasy-wise. I think in this case for this week, I'm gonna go Tua. They're playing the Chargers. Jeff just said it's the highest scoring, forecasted to be the highest scoring game of the week. Rodgers is great, but he's very efficient. There's not a lot of garbage yardage with him the last couple of years in Green Bay. So I think from strictly fantasy speaking, I would go Tua this week based on the matchup.
I like it. I like it. Jeff, what do you got to say here?
Yeah, I'd say Tua because of the matchup, and not to mention they picked up Dalvin Cook for a reason over there. So you got Breece Hall and you got Dalvin Cook. So there's some power running game wise. We just mentioned Mostert for Miami isn't necessarily the best. So running game wise, the Jets are certainly better. This is a new offense for Rodgers. Tua is now settling into this with 2 of possibly the best wide receivers in the game. Certainly Tyreek Hill is in the conversation as the best. So having those weapons, I'd say Tua.
I like it. I'm going to go ahead and lean Rodgers here. I think just because I feel like he's going to be playing with somewhat of a chip on his shoulder with something to prove. I think that Jets defense and that Dolphins defense are both pretty damn good, and I just don't see that being a high-scoring affair. That said, I do like both of these guys quite a bit, but I just like Rodgers' weapons, and I think we're going to be able to see him showcase his skill and ability because I think he's good for that for a few weeks a year. and then he starts showing you his true colors when he just kind of gives up and starts doing ayahuasca for the rest of it. We got I Want All the Money. You know what this guy needs to be watching is the DFS show that we have on Saturday nights. He says start Cowboys defense or the Ravens. Jeff, what are you starting?
I just from a matchup perspective, I would go. Dallas does have a great defense. The Giants' offense is better than Houston's. Baltimore is favored by 10 points in this game versus Houston. I'd say the Ravens might have some more opportunity, maybe for a pick six, something like that. Cowboys will probably have some. Parsons is a team record, you know that. But the Giants do have a halfway decent offense, more so than Houston, or at least more reliable. So I'm slightly leaning Baltimore.
I don't have an argument for that. And actually, that's what I was thinking, and almost with the exact same logic. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Houston at home, Houston at home with a rookie quarterback starting. I think the Ravens are no Mark Andrews, so the defense is going to feel like they need to make some plays, help out the offense there. I don't think the Cowboys is a bad start, but I think the Ravens is a really nice start, probably the best start of the week.
Yeah, and that's another shout out to J.K. Dobbins today, because I think that's going to be one of the bigger themes of that Baltimore offense is they're going to try to slow it down and win that game on defense. This question kind of cracked me up, and I don't even know if it's serious, but hey, he made the list. So SportsDad 1972, he says Aaron Rodgers, Baker Mayfield, or Josh Allen. Who do you start? And be careful, because I will kick you off the show if you get this wrong. Joe, lead us off.
I mean, man, it's a well, what have you done for me lately? Short-term memory, whatever you want to call it. I'd be starting Josh Allen here. 17.
Right now, I thought you almost said Baker Mayfield on accident. Jeff, what do you got right here?
The only way you don't start Josh Allen is if we were sitting in 2015 right now. That's the only way you do not start Josh Allen. Interesting question, and interesting to throw Mayfield in there, by the way. I'm curious if there's anybody who would say Baker Mayfield. I mean, you can maybe make an argument that he's got some weapons there in Tampa, but good God. So Josh Allen.
Yeah, it's Josh Allen hands down, just because you got the running ability that he's always so good at. He's also amazing and probably the best quarterback to ever play football, and he's from Wyoming. So it should be a no-brainer. But I do really like Baker Mayfield. I think he can turn it around, and that's kind of why I put that question on there, because let's take out Josh Allen. Would you start Baker Mayfield over Aaron Rodgers this week?
No, but you know what? By the end of the year, there might be some weeks where you would. It's possible.
Yep, I think that it's going to be interesting to see what that team can do, at least. Baker Mayfield's last chance, and it's right in my backyard, so I'm here for it. I'm ready to see it. We got at Christy S20198654. We got morning, everyone. Football is back. And Ice One fantasy question. Who do I start in the flex? Najee Harris or Johan Dotson? Joe, take it away.
Yeah, I'll apply the Jeff methodology here and go Harris as the starting running back. Obviously not a great matchup, a healthy San Francisco defense. But, Dotson, he's got McLaurin there. He's the number 2. He could be decent, but I think Najee Harris has the better opportunity to get in the end zone. So if it's a touchdown heavy scoring league, I would definitely say Najee. He's going to touch it 10 plus times. And I'm curious to see how this Pittsburgh offense is this year with him and Pickens, and obviously Pickett with another year under their belt.
I like it. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I think this is Harris, and to me, it's not even close just based on volume. I mean, Joe said 10 plus touches. I expect Najee Harris to get probably even 20 plus. The guy gets his yardage. He doesn't average very much. He averaged under 4 yards per carry, but somehow he ends up with 80 to 100 yards, which means they're feeding him the ball a ton. For Dotson to be the better play here, he would have to get very lucky with maybe a downfield pass that goes for 75 on one pass. But Harris is easily the pick here.
Yeah, I like Johan Dotson. I really like Sam Howell and what he's bringing to the table with this offense. There's also a few things that scare me, kind of Jalen Samuel sitting over there getting ready to steal touches, where I think he's going to be stealing touches on the third downs and red zone looks from Najee. But I think the volume is going to be there for Najee still. So I'm going to also lean Najee Harris as well on this one. So, but I do really like that offense. I think that the commies are going to be really good this year.
And I have to say, and I got to ask too, because this is the second or maybe third time you brought up Howell in this conversation. You talking about Howell this year is almost like Joe talking about Carson Wentz last year at the beginning of last year. So you're all over this guy. I like it. I hope the guy produces for you, Mike, because now this is the second or third time you brought it up in about a half an hour here.
Well, the last guy that I was in on as a quarterback was Josh Allen. And the one before that was Patrick Mahomes. So we'll just see if we can keep on that consistent path here. And I just really like that offense and how it's coached. I think that's really where we're going to see a big difference, because I think I'm really not sold on Howell's ability, but his coachability and the way he's able to respond to it, I think is going to be good. I don't believe he's going to have free reign on that offense. So I think that's another benefit to him. We got Chris 3 says Pickens or Flowers.
This is a good one.
This is a good one. I like this one a lot. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to let you lead this one off, Joe, even though you left off the last one. I think it's good. I think it's a good one. I think you like it. Let's do it. What do you got?
Zay Flowers keeps on coming up for me. He came up on me for me in drafts a lot towards the end of the draft, as far as one of my last wideouts and redrafts. He's come up when I've been looking at the DFS landscape for the week or whatnot. So, from a DFS perspective, I think I'd actually give Flowers the go with Andrews out now. But in a league, I think you got to go Pickens. You drafted him because he's an up-and-coming star based on what you saw last year. You believe to an extent that Pickett is going to evolve, and Pickett to Pickens is going to be a thing. They'll be losing, I'm sure, at some point in the second half of this game and have to throw the ball. So it's a tough matchup for them, but it's almost not a tough matchup enough for Baltimore where that hurts Flowers. I don't think they're going to need a lot from Zay Flowers today. So being his first ever game, he might not get a lot. Where Pickens, they're going to need. If Pittsburgh's going to win this game, they'll need some plays from Pickens. So I say Pickens, but I got Flowers on my radar really close for the year.
I like that. I like that answer a lot. Jeff, what do you think?
I mean, we brought up Pickens last night as kind of an underrated play in DFS. He's rated higher on FanDuel. I'm sure DraftKings too, for a reason. Again, not that Zay Flowers is a bad choice, but Pickens seems like he's going to or they're trying to work him into being the guy in Pittsburgh. And San Francisco's rush defense is much better than their pass defense. So I think Pickens will have a little bit more opportunity than Flowers. So I'm leaning Pickens.
And same, I really like what Joe said about, the opportunity being present and the necessity of it being there. I think that Baltimore can win this game fairly easy. They're not going to have to lean very hard on too many guys to get the job done. I think they're going to lean on their defense more, which brings us back to why I like the defense earlier. Pickens is they're going to have to play hard against San Francisco because they're a great team. They're a tough defense. They're going to make you work for everything. So I'm leaning Pickens here as well. Jacob B. Speaks says, should I start Jamal Williams or Deebo Samuel? Jeff, what do you think, buddy?
Wow.
I like that one. I like that question. That's a really tough one. I have to say I will lean Deebo just because Jamal Williams is on a new team there. Deebo's been the guy for a little bit. He gets a ton of touches. Purdy is going to be mixing it up and throwing slant passes to Deebo. So I know I always say that the tie goes to the running back. This isn't necessarily a tie. It's slightly leaning for me more towards Deebo.
Joe, I think you're going to disagree right here. What do you think?
I am. I mean, as you guys know, I've been mentioning him for a couple of weeks, and I'm not understanding why he's not being talked about more fantasy-wise for at least the first 3 weeks of the year. Jamal Williams, 17 touchdowns last year for the freaking Detroit Lions, and now has the keys to the car of the running game there in New Orleans while Kamara's out. Tennessee this week for New Orleans, so I think that's a nice matchup. I expect Williams to get in the end zone. Deebo's going to get some yardage this year. There's no doubt about it. But the way they used him changed once McCaffrey got there in San Francisco last year. So I'm not sure you're seeing multi-threat Deebo as much this year. I think it's going to be more of a street receiver for most of his fantasy points. I'm sure he'll have some big games, but they just win their games so differently. Like they play good defense. They run the ball. They're efficient. They don't need Debo to go for 8 and 125, especially against Pittsburgh. I think the Saints, with Michael Thomas finally just coming back and with no Kamara, I think they're going to need a solid day from Jamal Williams, and they'll lean on him a lot. So I like Williams here, even though it feels a little crazy to say Williams over Deebo Samuel week 1. But I think you got to do it.
One point real quick. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt, but 1 point real quick. What bothers me in New Orleans is kind of the Taysom Hill factor. I really dislike that guy being there from a fantasy standpoint, because you do have, Williams or Kamara, depending on whoever the guy is. Sometimes those packages inside the 5-yard line, they do the Taysom Hill thing, the little gimmick that he does all the time, and he'll steal some touchdowns from their running backs. And Debo does get some carries too, so he can kind of go both. So that's kind of my little bit of my logic there too.
And I like both your answers right there, but I think for me on this one, I actually have to lean Jamal Williams as well, because Joe has been hyping this guy up, and I've been listening. And if you look at what Derek Carr brings to the table on that offense, and it's going to be consistency, right? They'll be keeping drives alive, and for that to happen, I think you're going to have to see a lot of outlet passes, and I think you're going to see a lot of those outlets be going to Jamal Williams, because they're going to need to do things to keep in this game. There's plenty of weapons to be had out there on both sides of the football. But I'm with you as far as Deebo Samuel. I mean, Deebo Samuel to me lost his explosive value. The part that the reason we liked to draft Deebo when they signed Christian McCaffrey, I think that minute right then completely devalued Deebo, and we started seeing him still as a wide receiver and a running back, but I don't think we're getting that running back return the way we were drafting him. So he becomes a guy who is now, instead of getting, 3 catches for 60 yards and 2 runs for 60 yards and a touchdown, and saying, oh, he's a wide receiver 1. He's a wide receiver 1. Well, no, when you take away that other 60, he becomes a wide receiver 2 really quick. And then a wide receiver 3 when you start seeing Ayuk coming out. And then you got a lot of that production coming with George Kittle off the field. So they just kind of built around Deebo Samuel. And I think when you heard him complain about being utilized as much as he was, I bet you his contract reasons and his agent are like, man, you should have kept your mouth shut, because maybe they wouldn't have went and got themselves Christian McCaffrey or anything like that. I think there's just too many cooks in the kitchen. So for me, it's also Jamal Williams as well. We got our man, Heartbreak Jit, who says, who should I start, Terry McLaurin or Mike Evans?
That's a good one. And
I'll let you lead that one off then, Joe, because you started it.
That's a really good one. Again, I don't know. I don't know what the Commander offense is going to be like. I know some people are high on Sam Howell. I know they got some weapons in the running game, in the passing game, and I know it's a good matchup this week. But I also have no clue, is Baker Mayfield going to be like, who am I thinking about? Is he going to be like Winston in Tampa Bay, where they just let him throw it all over the freaking field, and it resulted in a lot of 350 3 touchdown, 2-3 interception games, where they lost a lot of high scoring games? Or is Rachaad White going to become a between the tackle running back, and they're going to change the way the offense is? I'm not sure what's going to happen with them either. That's not a horrible matchup for them either at Minnesota today. This is a really, really tough one. It feels crazy to sit Mike Evans. I think I'm going to give Mike Evans one shot before I start to consider sitting him here. I think I would go Mike Evans, but this is really close.
Jeff, what do you got right here? Because you know what I'm getting ready to say.
Oh, we know where Mike's going.
And because of that, I'll go. No, just kidding. Not because of that, but I'm leaning Mike Evans because he's the clear-cut number 1 guy. I think there was something that happened earlier today where they said that they're not renegotiating his contract. So this is the last year that he's playing on his contract. So I'm sure he wants to play pretty well and get picked up or get a decent contract from somebody else next year. But in any case, outside of that, the Minnesota passing defense is ranked second to last in the league. Evans being the biggest target there. Don't get me wrong. Godwin's going to get some catches too, and Baker Mayfield isn't exactly Tom Brady, but he's still going to have somebody. He'll have some weapons to distribute to. Whereas McLaurin he's a great receiver, a good number 1. But for me, I think Evans will see more of the points today than McLaurin will.
And I'm loving me some Sam Howell, so I'm loving me some Terry McLaurin. I think he's the wide receiver one on that team. I think he'll complement. I think a lot of things that Dotson brings to the table will help McLaurin out, be able to shed a little bit of the double coverage, which he does fine against double coverage. He does great against contested coverage. He's, to me, one of the unsung wide receiver heroes out there that can really win leagues when he's healthy and he's able to have a quarterback hit the football the way he can. And also the things that really kind of make me nervous about Mike Evans is we're going to see one of two things, right? We're going to see Mike Evans on a contract year, blow it up, be the best he's ever been, or we're going to see Mike Evans on a contract year on a team that just scorned him. Why wouldn't you pay Mike Evans if you're Tampa Bay? My God, man, like what does it do? Like, is there zero faith? Is there zero like loyalty to players or anything like that? This guy has given you like 10 years of his life, and every single year, like, I mean, he has 10,000 yards for your organization. What more do you want? Pay the guy. He's probably only going to need a couple more years guaranteed contract. Pay the guy. Come on, man.
It's going to be interesting with him because there's so many weeks where he's like a game time decision or he ends up playing with a bad ankle or something when they're good. It's going to be interesting with him this year. If they're 4-7, and he's banged up going into a contract season, it'll be really curious to see how they handle him this year.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's exactly like there's a chance that he sits. I mean, there's speculation that he might actually go out there and not even suit up today because they haven't met up on this contract, and that he might sit the season. I don't foresee that being a thing. I think he's going to want to go out there and play and probably try to get that money. But at 30 years old, do you really have an opportunity to go out there and get much of a contract because you're already looking at the post 29 blues on these guys, And so I don't know. Jeff, what do you got to add right here? You look like you got something to say.
No, I was just looking at just checking on FanDuel always kind of as we go through, and they got McLaurin rated above Mike Evans today. So not by much, but that's at least something to kind of think about where, these guys know what they're talking about. I mean, but I think so do we. But in any case, FanDuel has him rated a little bit higher than Mike Evans.
Yeah, no, like I said, I'm a believer in the Sam Howell experience. I think that he's going to be really, really good for that offense. And I think the benefactor for that is going to be Terry McLaurin, because when you get him a good quarterback, he always excels. He always dominates, man. He always does really good. He's in the wide receiver one conversation all the way up until the end of the year. And then for some reason we stopped talking about him. It's probably because he is a commie and he plays over there in good old Washington. And therefore, we don't see him in the postseason, and therefore we forget about him. But I think that's really what happens to Terry McLaurin.
A fair point from Jeff checking. DraftKings has McLaurin $100 more expensive than Mike Evans, so basically the same.
Basically the same, yeah. So, I mean, not too bad, not too bad. And speaking of not too bad, man, that was not too bad of a week one. That was a little bit more active and exciting than I thought it was going to be. Week one's always kind of set it and forget it, but we knew we were going to be hit with a few tight end questions and things like that with Mark Andrews going out, and as well as a few of those running back speculations and questions that we have going on.
I got one that just came in, Mikey.
Oh yeah, I love it. Let's hit it.
Would you flex Rachaad White, Tyler Lockett, or Jamal Williams? PPR. Typical.
If you know me, I always said DJ Moore's my guy. Who else is my guy? Is Tyler Lockett. He's been the clear-cut dude in Seattle. Geno is comfortable going to him. He had more touchdown catches last year than DK Metcalf, even though somehow Metcalf keeps getting rated higher than him. Lockett is the security blanket for Geno Smith and has always been in Seattle, period, whoever's at quarterback. So I like Lockett over those other two.
I like Williams here, but it's very, very close because I too love Lockett, and I think Lockett is – I agree. I think he's the wide receiver one for that team. I think Geno relies on him more than he does DK Metcalf. I think DK Metcalf will give you bigger games. I think he has a higher ceiling, but I think that you combine Lockett's floor with his ceiling, it's too immense to ignore. So, but I still really like Jamal. I like Jamal Williams with Derek Carr there a lot. I think that's going to be a huge –
I got one more Lockett one. This is my own. Wide receiver 2, Lockett, Christian Kirk, or Cortland Sutton?
Ooh, I'll tell you, I have to stick with my Lockett argument, but Sutton is tempting just because I don't believe Judy's playing today. So to me, Sutton's kind of the clear-cut one over there. We talked about Russell Wilson last night. He cannot – there's no chance he's having as bad of a season this year as he did last year, especially with Sean Payton there. So Sutton is very tempting over there. So I'm leaning Lockett, but Sutton kind of piques my interest.
I feel like Sutton's the number one there, even if Judy is on the field. I feel like Sutton's always been the number one of that Broncos offense. I am nervous. As a Broncos fan, I am nervous to see what kind of Russell Wilson comes out there, although I am very excited to see it with Sean Payton at the helm, and hopefully he's brought some of that disaster to settling and at least being a more competitive football team. Although I'm not expecting him to go win the Super Bowl or anything like that, just to get out there and be positive, maybe above 500 would be a huge step forward. So yeah, I think I'm going Sutton here. I think I really like Sutton a lot because, like I said, I feel like even with Judy on the field, I feel like Sutton's a more talented player. I think Tim Patrick. It's a shame that we'll never probably get to see Tim Patrick play football again because he can't even make it through preseason without breaking something and being out for the year. Because I think he would be the one, but then I think Cortland Sutton is the one right after that. So,
all right.
And Mike, I did get a message on DM here asking a question of Miles Sanders or Cam Akers today.
Ooh.
What do you guys think?
That's a good one.
In honor of all my never Sanders last year, and then that guy went out and did really well. Played good, and I think on this team, he's going to be one of the very few options you can lean on. Give me Miles Sanders.
What do you think, Joe?
The problem with Miles Sanders is getting in the end zone. Even before we came on, ESPN did a bet segment, and they said, take Miles Sanders over 74 rushing yards or 72 rushing yards. And I couldn't necessarily argue with that. The problem is 80 rushing yards without a touchdown, 40 rushing yards and a touchdown beats that. And I think so. That's where I feel like I have a hard time with Sanders there.
Yeah. So are you leaning? You thinking Akers then of the two?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the Rams. He's clearly the number one there. He did come on towards the end of last season. Because that's Miles Sanders with Chuba Hubbard still. Is that the other guy there?
Yeah. Chuba.
Yeah. I don't even the Rams don't even I don't even know who the Rams backup running back is this year.
Kyron Williams.
There you go. I'm gonna go Akers, but it is close.
Yeah, those are definitely some good points. If I'm leaning one way, a little bit towards Sanders because Joe's right that those numbers did come in for Sanders like that last year, but don't forget that was with Jalen Hurts at quarterback, so a lot of touchdowns probably got taken from the running back position. So I see your point with Sanders getting some yardage, not necessarily touchdown. I think he'll have more opportunity for touchdowns this year. I mean, we'll see what Bryce Young has to offer, but I'm leaning Sanders just a little bit on that one. So anyhow.
Excellent. Well, do you guys have anything to add for this very first Blitz?
Right. Glad to be back, buddy. Looking forward to the games today, week one. There's always some interesting stuff that happens. We're going to see some upsets. We're going to have some laughing, some crying. It's going to get interesting, Mike.
Some good decisions, some bad decisions, but cheers to week one. That's for sure. I'm glad it's here.
Amen to that. Yes, it's good to be back. And as always, we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. We'll be ready to answer all your questions. You start sitting advice. Oh, wait, we got a question here.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no. T2T and us, we had a little bit of a parting of the ways there. We definitely still wish them well, and I believe wish us well too. We're still good friends with those guys. They just had a different direction that they were going, and we had this opportunity here with these guys. So we just kind of went two separate ways there, Trans-Siberian. But
thank you for following us here, buddy. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we definitely love that you found us and you came over here with us.
And to answer his question, you're looking at my quasi half man room and then half I've got way too many little kids room.
Yep, and he said it's dinner time over there as well. So we're gonna go ahead and get this going. And
As do I, Trans-Siberian. As do I. I go where Mikey goes also.
I appreciate that, guys. And well, so where we're going next is we're going to go be setting some lineups, and we're going to go be drinking a couple of beers, and we're going to be having ourselves a good day because, boys, it's football time. Like I said, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, get that bell for Triple Play Fantasy at Triple Play Fantasy. We love you guys. We're so happy you have us here. Thank you, guys, and we will see you